Hello, hello, and good evening. I'm back to do the planned video. I had originally scheduled this for tomorrow. I moved it up because my son and I are going to the movies tomorrow, or we're going to do something tomorrow. So I wanted to do this tonight so that I am freed up tomorrow. But hello and welcome. I'm here a little bit early. I wanted to start this live stream just a little bit early because I don't know how many people will actually be interested in joining. Hopefully some, because I know these are popular chapters and very well known, very debated as to the content of them. So we're going to go through Matthew 24 and 25 tonight. I'm going to try to not make haste through them. But the last time I went through these, it took about 2 hours. I'm going to try to get through them faster tonight, and I believe that we'll fully be able to do that, no problem. But we are going to go through the entire 2 chapters and see what they're about. Very clear as to what they're about, but we'll go through that tonight. So I don't want to say, I shouldn't say very clear, because obviously there's a lot of debate. But as you start going through it, it becomes clear. So let's pop out this chat. I say that you can put it in a separate window. So that's what I'm doing. Popping it out of where it's at and putting it in a separate window so I can see it. Hi, Cass. Welcome. Nice to see you. Glad to have you here. So I just starting this a little bit early, so give people an opportunity to get the notification and come in and hopefully join us in chat, or at least be here during the video. But for those of you who are watching this after the fact, many thanks to you also, because I always appreciate your time and your attention. So I like being able to go through these videos, and I always welcome feedback or comments or ideas for what to go through, because I don't know what's on you guys' mind unless you tell me. So I will go through what I can go through. I just don't know what all is on you guys' mind. So after we go through this, I'm going to try to figure something out to talk about regarding the actual potential timing of the rapture. So formulating ideas and stuff. Hi, Born Again for Christ. Welcome. This will be good. Post-trippers always use this. It's about the second coming. Totally separate event. Yeah. And as we make our way through it, we will absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, see how it relates to the second coming. So I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's very, very clear that it relates to the second coming. So we'll go through that and show you guys what it's all about. And how it relates to the second coming. It actually follows the sequence of events in Revelation. But yeah, I don't want to get into it too much. We'll give it a couple more minutes. We're about 2 minutes before 7. So just a couple more minutes and then I'll get started. Really, the discussion about this starts back in Matthew 5, and then Matthew 21, and then Matthew 24, and Acts 3. There's a lot of support to understand what this is talking about. So yeah, it all starts back in Matthew 5. So I'm going to start there. Hopefully it won't take 2 hours. What major city is that by? I am not familiar with where that is. Leslie, Michigan? I'm in Michigan too. Not in Detroit. That is a picture of the first night ball game at Comerica Park where the Tigers play, taken back in April 12th, 2000. I'm not even sure where I came across it. I think at a Lowe's home improvement store I came across it, and I thought that would be a great picture for my living room. At that point, I was a really big baseball fan. I haven't watched them in a while. I am the very definition of a fair weather fan when it comes to baseball. So that's what that is. But no, I don't live in Detroit. I just live in Michigan. Oh, okay. So you're a couple hours away from me, not very far. Hello, fellow Michigander. All right, we are at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Hello and welcome to everybody. For those of you who are here with me in chat and not in chat, and those who are watching after the fact, I sincerely appreciate your time as always and your attention. So we're going to go through Matthew 24 and 25 tonight. As always, when I go through this stuff, I try to give you more information than is necessary to try to set up the events to try to help develop more understanding if you were unsure to begin with. Matthew 5 is actually where this starts, where the distinction of what event this is talking about comes into play. And I'm going to go through the entire chapters of Matthew 24 and 25 tonight, but I want to start out with a little bit of understanding here. In Matthew 24, starting in verse 34, Jesus says, "Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." So at whatever period of time this is talking about, there is a passing away of the heavens and the earth that will occur. And as we get further into this, we will come to understand that it is the passing away of the heavens and the earth that is discussed in the next verse. "But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only." So with the events of Matthew 24, the culmination of those events end with the passing away of heaven and earth. Similar language was given at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. See, that's the end of Jesus' ministry. Actually, Matthew 21 was the end of Jesus' ministry, the triumphal entry, the day of his visitation, when he presented himself to Israel as the victorious king, prophesied in Zechariah 9, "Behold, thy king cometh unto thee, lowly and meek, riding the colt of the foal of donkey." That was the end of his 3.5-year ministry. Well, when we go back to Matthew 5, this takes us to the beginning. This is actually the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. This is the very first teaching Jesus gave, and he used similar language. In Matthew 5:17, "Think not I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled." So in Matthew 5, you have the heaven and earth passing away with a fulfillment of something. And in Matthew 24, you have the heaven and earth passing away with the fulfillment of something. But these are two different somethings. Matthew 5, again, is the beginning of Jesus' ministry. His very first teaching, the Mount of Beatitudes, Sermon on the Mount. And then Matthew 21, this was the subject of my book, The Triumphal Entry. This was the day of visitation. This was Israel's make or break point. This is what Jesus' ministry was all about, was bringing Israel to the point where she would be ready to accept him when her day came. Her day came upon the triumphal entry, the presentation of the king, bringing the kingdom. And all they had to do was accept it on this day. If Israel had accepted Jesus as her Messiah, if Israel as a whole, including the religious leaders, with one consent, had accepted Jesus as her Messiah on that day, the kingdom would have come to Israel. They did not. When you go to Zechariah 9, this prophecy is given, explaining how the kingdom could have come to Israel at that time, the day of his visitation, if they had accepted. This is Zechariah 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, upon a colt of a foal of an ass. And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off. And he shall speak peace unto the heathen, and his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth. This is talking about the kingdom. Jesus was coming to offer the kingdom to Israel on the day of visitation, the Triumphal Entry, Palm Sunday. The fulfillment of that prophecy in Matthew 21, which is 3 chapters before Matthew 24. I know, 21 is 3 less than 24. But there's a reason I point this out. Because you have to understand that Jesus is talking about a fulfillment that ended with the passing of the heaven and earth. And in the Old Testament, it talks about, behold, making all things new, an establishment of a new heavens and new earth to go into the kingdom. So this was something that is going to coincide with the bringing of the kingdom as the passing away of the heaven and the earth. Matthew 5 is talking about the potential for that to have occurred at the first coming, if Jesus had, the first coming being his 4 days before him going to the cross. If Israel had accepted him, the passing of the heavens away, the passing away of the heavens and the earth would have coincided with the bringing of the kingdom in Matthew 21 if they had accepted him, but they didn't. So this is, Matthew 21, talking about him sending his disciples to find the donkey and her colt that was prophesied, and setting Jesus thereon, and the great multitude spreading garments in the way, cutting down branches and putting them in the way. The multitudes that went before and that followed cried, saying, Hosanna to the Son of David. That's the victorious king. How he presented himself on Palm Sunday was as the victorious king coming to bring the kingdom. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest. And when he was come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved, saying, Who is this? And the multitude said, This is Jesus, the prophet of Nazareth of Galilee. And Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it the den of thieves. Verse 15, And when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying in the temple and saying, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were sore displeased. And this goes back to the one consent that Israel will need to accept Jesus with. This goes back to the idea of Israel not currently being one. They need to be brought back to one, and that's what Gog and Magog will serve the purpose of doing, to go into the 70th week. They will be judged as one, and they will be saved as one, because they will give their consent as one. And that's what Joel 2 and Zephaniah 2 and 3 and all of the Old Testament prophets that talk about that describe the salvation of the Jewish nation. It will be a corporate salvation, because they will all give one consent to call upon the name of the Lord. It's not that the salvation isn't individual. It's that all of the individuals will choose to do the same thing at the same time. That's the salvation of the Jewish nation. Not that they're going to be saved just because they're Jewish, just because all of them do the same thing at the same time for the same purpose. So that's where the one consent comes in. And that's what the one consent was a failure of at this time, was that, yes, there was a great multitude that was seeking to accept the victorious king, but because there was not one consent, it served as a rejection. And obviously the Pharisees and the scribes sought to put Jesus to death and stirred up the multitude to demand the crucifixion of Jesus 4 days later, after this triumphal entry. So this is the day of visitation, Israel's make or break day, where if they had accepted him, again, the kingdom would have come, because that's the prophecy in Zechariah 9, is that his dominion shall be from sea to sea. All of that stuff is that they had accepted him, it would have come at that time. The heavens and earth would have passed away, would have been remade. They would have gone into the kingdom for the 1,000 years. There would have been no crucifixion. There would have been no dispensation of grace, no Gentiles saved. There would have been anything that followed would not have existed. But they did not do that, which is why everything that followed happened. This is what caused the delay of the kingdom. Acts 3 explains this. The day of the triumphal entry, the non-acceptance of Jesus with one consent is what caused the delay of the kingdom on that day. They couldn't have done it after that point. That was what set in motion Jesus going to the cross. Death, burial, resurrection set in motion the gospel message, the new covenant. It wasn't just a fulfillment of the law under the old covenant that Jesus came to do on that day of visitation. It wasn't just that they were giving up the kingdom at that time and causing it to be delayed to some point in the future, setting into motion the second coming. And that's why I'm bringing Matthew 5 into the picture as compared to the same language used in Matthew 24, a fulfillment that brings the passing away of the heaven and earth, both chapters. One talks about the beginning of the ministry leading up to the day of visitation and what could have happened on that day had Israel chosen differently, but it didn't. And so the first coming, that's where it goes, like I said, 4 days later, you have the death, burial, resurrection, and 40 days later, the ascension, Jesus left. All of that set into motion, their rejection of the acceptance of the kingdom of Jesus and the kingdom he was attempting to bring on that day set into motion all of these other events and guaranteed that there would be a second coming. And that's where you have the language in Matthew 24 becoming similar, but it's no longer talking about the first coming like Matthew 5 was, because Matthew 21 was the cutoff point, the day of visitation that they rejected. So Matthew 24 is no longer talking about a first coming, about a fulfillment that has a passing away of the heaven and earth. It's talking about the second coming. But we go to Acts 3 and we talk about the delay of the kingdom. And this is Peter. Verse 12 of Acts 3. And when Peter saw it, he answered unto the people, Ye men of Israel, why marvel ye at this? Or why look ye so earnestly on us, as though by our own power or holiness we had made this man to walk? Talking about a miracle that they had just done. The God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob, the God of our fathers, hath glorified his son Jesus, whom ye delivered up and denied him in the presence of Pilate when he was determined to let him go. But ye denied the Holy One and the just, and desired a murderer to be granted unto you, and killed the Prince of Life, whom God hath raised from the dead, whereof we are witnesses. And his name through faith is the name in his, and his name through faith in his name hath made this man strong, whom ye see and know. Yea, the faith which is in him hath given him the perfect soundness in the presence of you all. And now, brethren, I wot that through ignorance ye did it, as did also your rulers. But those things which God hath showed by the mouth of all the prophets that Christ should suffer, he hath so fulfilled. Repent ye therefore and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord. The times of refreshing is talking about the coming of the kingdom. That was delayed because they rejected him and put him to death, as did their rulers. So this is what Acts 3 is talking about, when the times of refreshing shall come. The opportunity had already come, and they did not take advantage of it. And now it will come at some point in the future when he returns a second time. And he shall send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which God hath spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the beginning of the world. So this is talking about the delay of the kingdom here. Why was the kingdom delayed? Because Israel did not, with one consent, accept their victorious king on the day of visitation. The account of Luke also makes this clear. And I talked about this a couple nights ago, or last night, in the account of the Triumphal Entry, when the Pharisees told Jesus to rebuke his disciples when they were crying out, Hosanna to the Son of David, Hosanna in the highest. And he said unto them, I tell you that if these should hold their peace, the stones would immediately cry out. And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, If thou hadst known, even thou at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. So he's saying, because they did not recognize this day of their visitation, as was prophesied by the day count in Daniel and by the prophecy in Zechariah 9. The things that belong to the kingdom are now being hid from their eyes. The things which belong unto thy peace, the time of peace, the Prince of Peace establishing a righteous kingdom of peace on earth. That's exactly what that's talking about. And again, the prophecy in Zechariah 9 was talking about the setting up of dominion from sea to sea. So the reason I'm going through all of this right now is to help you understand that the very first prophecy of talking about a fulfillment, specifically of the law, in conjunction with the passing away of the heaven and earth, was talking about a fulfillment of the law and the coming of the kingdom that would bring a new heavens and earth with it. But that opportunity was foregone because Israel did not as a whole do what they needed to, which delayed the kingdom, ensured there would be a second coming, which also requires a fulfillment and will bring a passing away of the heavens and earth to some point in the future, and set into motion the death, burial, resurrection, and the gospel of the dispensation of grace and the new covenant where Gentiles are invited to partake of the heavenly promises through faith in Christ. When we go to Matthew 24, the delay of the kingdom was already set in place. So this can no longer be talking about a first coming. It must then be talking about the second coming. And we say that it must then be talking about the second coming because Jesus has not yet gone to the cross. There is no new covenant. There is no death, burial, resurrection. There is no gospel. There is no dispensation of grace yet. Therefore, there is no church. This is talking about Israel. Now, we have to go to Matthew 23 to set this up a little bit more, because Matthew 21, the delay of the kingdom set into place because they rejected him. The very next chapter in Matthew 22, Jesus tells a parable about the kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king which made a marriage for his son and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. This is a reference to the Jews who were being invited to partake of the kingdom at that time, and they didn't want it. So he said, fine, go find people who do want it and bring them to the wedding as guests, and they can enjoy it. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, tell them that are bidden, behold, I have prepared a dinner, my oxen, my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready, come into the marriage. The marriage supper of the Lamb that will occur in the kingdom. You go to Revelation, he said, blessed are they who are called to the marriage supper. That's talking about the marriage supper of the Lamb that will occur immediately after the commencement of the kingdom on earth. So this is what he's saying, is these people were invited. They didn't want to come. He's like, go invite them again. It's all prepared. It's all ready. They don't want to come. This is talking about a rejection of the kingdom the first time. They made light of it and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise, and the remnant took his servants and entreated them spitefully and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies and destroyed the murderers and burnt up the city. Saith unto his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore to the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid them to the marriage. So the servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both good and bad, and the wedding was furnished with guests. And he saith unto him, friend, how camest the king came in to see the guests? He saw there was a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto him, friend, how camest thou hither, not having a wedding garment? He was speechless. And then said the king to the servants, bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. Mark's account. Here is a part of Mark's account that I absolutely love. I think it's Mark 11. Sorry, I want to read this, but I just need to find it. I'm going to look this up because I might be in the wrong spot, but it actually talks about the kingdom being taken from them and giving it to a nation bearing the fruit thereof. And that is talking about the kingdom being taken from Israel and given to the Gentiles. So I'm sorry, it might be in Luke. Anyway, well, I can't find it. That's too bad. I really wanted to find it. Because as a result, one of the accounts of the Triumphal Entry, it talks about how the kingdom will be taken. There's a parable, a kingdom parable, and they say that the kingdom will be taken from Israel and given to a nation bearing the fruit thereof. Oh, it's in Matthew, isn't it? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll stop trying to look. I can't find it. But if anybody else can find it, that would be awesome of you to tell me where it is. But long story short, there was a first coming potential of the kingdom if Israel had given their unilateral consent to accept it, to accept Jesus and accept the kingdom, but they didn't. And so it was delayed, set into motion a second coming some point in the future. And it also set into motion his death, burial, and resurrection. The new covenant, the fulfillment of the old covenant, the new covenant replacing it, the gospel of the dispensation of grace, and the co-equality of Gentiles, guaranteeing that there would be Gentiles in the millennium. Jesus, in one of the accounts, I can't find it, I'm so sorry, I really wanted to find it, talks about after the rejection of Israel, that the kingdom would be taken from them and given to a nation bearing the fruit thereof. And I really, really want to find that. But yeah, if anybody else is in chat and can find that for me, that would be awesome. Talking about the dispensation of the grace of God. So after the rejection happened, after we know that there's going to be a second coming, after the disciples are told there will be a second coming. So Jesus is clearly on earth at this time, and they want to know, okay, fine, so when are you coming back? In Matthew 23, he delivers all these kind of woes to the Pharisees. The very last one is that Jerusalem would be destroyed. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often I would have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, proof that the kingdom had been delayed. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. Proof that the kingdom had been delayed by this time, or that there was going to be a delay of the kingdom, that their time to accept it had been past, set into motion a sequence of events that would end in a second coming. And he says, you shall not see me henceforth until you shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So they're made fully aware that the opportunity that they had been given is gone now. That at some point in the future, and they will not be alive to see it, he's going to come back. But their time, their opportunity for the reception of the kingdom was gone. Matthew 21:43. Therefore I say unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof. Okay, so thank you. Talking about the parable of the vineyard and the husbandman and the stoning of the servants, and how the husbandman sent his son and they killed him too. And then Jesus asked the Pharisees, what should the king have done when they killed all of his servants and his son? And they knew that Jesus was telling the parable against them. Jesus said unto them, did ye never read the scriptures? The stone which the builders rejected, the same has become the head of the corner. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. They were the builders who had rejected the chief cornerstone. And so he's basically prophesying, telling a parable that prophesies against them. And that's when he says, therefore I say unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you and given to a nation bearing the fruits thereof. Saying, your time has passed, you had your chance and you blew it, and now I'm going to give it to somebody else. And that somebody else is the gospel, is the dispensation of grace, based on the new covenant faith in Christ and the co-equality of Gentiles, because the Gentiles would bear the fruits of the heavenly kingdom. And whosoever shall fall on the stone shall be broken, but on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. So clearly, their time has passed. They're done. The offer of the kingdom is off the table. The woes are delivered against the Pharisees and the scribes and all of that. And he says, you're not going to see me again until you call upon my name. So his disciples, knowing all of this, knowing that there's going to be a second coming, knowing that they're not going to see him again until a universal consent to call upon the name of the Lord exists in Israel, they ask him, when is it going to happen? And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came unto him for to show him the buildings of the temple. So in the previous chapter, Matthew 23, he had just prophesied that the house of Israel, the temple, would be left unto them desolate. So his disciples in Matthew 24, they're walking down from the Mount of Olives, I'm guessing, or up to the Mount of Olives, through Jerusalem, through the court of the temple, showing them all of the huge, great, wonderful temple buildings. And Jesus says, yeah, they're all going to be destroyed, not one stone left upon another that will not be thrown down. So they're showing them the wonderful, great temple that he just told the Pharisees would be left unto them desolate. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Because their house is going to be left unto them desolate. And that was 70 AD when that happened, the sacking of Jerusalem by the Romans. And there's literally no physical evidence that a temple ever existed. Not that that temple ever existed. There is physical evidence that the first temple, Solomon's temple, existed. Lots of stuff. But there is no physical evidence whatsoever that the second temple existed, which is further proof that the Temple Mount is not where that was, because there's obviously stones and things like that left, which mean it's not relating to this, because Jesus clearly said there would not be anything left to indicate that anything existed. Anyway, so here we go in Matthew 24. We have the kingdom that had been delayed, the woes delivered to the religious leaders, the kingdom parables that say the original guests didn't want to come, so more guests were going to be found. Another clue that there was another event that was going to come that was going to invite more people that actually wanted to go to the wedding. And again, that goes to the invitation of the Gentiles into covenant relationship with God through Christ. So he is Jesus, after the rejection of the religious leaders and the non-whole consent of Israel, is prophesying that these things are going to happen. And he says the nation, essentially the kingdom of heaven is going to be given to a nation bearing the fruits thereof, because you didn't want it. So your time's gone. There's a delay, and during this period of delay, these things are going to happen. He's prophesying about what's going to happen in the future. He delivers all these woes to the religious leaders, and then he said, your temple's going to be destroyed. And so now, knowing that there is this other period of time in question that is going to come, he's going to come back at some point in the future. They don't know when. They want to know what are going to be the signs that they can look at so they can know when he's coming back, when he's getting ready to come back. And in Acts 1, they're clearly told they won't be alive when that happens, that the delay of the kingdom would be into a long period of time, that the people who were alive at that time would not experience it physically. Resurrected to go into it or, whatever, sure, but that it would not happen in their natural lifetimes. So that was taken off their shoulders. that knowledge was taken, or that weight was taken off their shoulders, I guess. But so we go to Matthew 24 in verse 3. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So again, this is them asking about the kingdom's delayed. Okay, fine. All of these things are going to happen now. When are you coming back? When is your physical return to earth going to be? When are you coming back for us? Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. What we're going to find here is that these events correspond directly to the book of Revelation and the prophecy in Daniel. See, Daniel is actually indirectly referenced twice here. I guess all 3 times technically. The prophecy in Daniel of the 70th week. See, when I said earlier that there were 2 prophecies that Israel had to understand the time of visitation, Zechariah 9, which was corresponded to Matthew 21, behold, thy king cometh unto thee, riding the donkey. That was the sign, I guess. But there was also a day count in Daniel, the 69 weeks, the 70 weeks prophecy. So after 7 weeks and 62 weeks, he would come, and then, or he would present himself, and then it says he would be cut off, and then there's the 70th week prophecy. Daniel 9:27 very specifically tells what will happen to start the week, what will happen at the midpoint of the week, and what will happen to end the week. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, beginning. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. End of the week, and for the middle of the week, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. End of the week, until the consummation of that determined is poured upon the desolate, or the desolator is judged, essentially. So you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. That corresponds to what we're being told here in Matthew, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So to begin the week, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. Revelation 6:1-2, and I saw the Lamb open one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, come and see. And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on it had a bow, covenant, and a crown was given unto him. I am come in my Father's name, and ye receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. It's given to him, because they accept him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer, as the quote-unquote victorious king, like Jesus will be when he comes back. So this is the beginning of the very first point that Daniel 9:27 states to begin the 70th week, is the take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. That is deception. That is the Antichrist, the one who comes in the place of Christ. This is the beginning of the 70th week to correspond with the opening of seal 1. This has not got anything to do with the rapture of the church. They're looking for signs of his coming and of the end of the age, the end of the world. The end of the world, the end of the age is what we're going to learn is the fulfillment of something that corresponds to the passing away of the heavens and earth, just like he talked about in Matthew 5. So the end of the world, or the end of the age, it's the end of that dispensation, the end of the 70th week that will result in the return of the Lord Jesus Christ at the second coming, which is what they're asking. When are you coming back? So the very first thing that he says here corresponds to the opening of seal 1, which is the arrival of the Antichrist, to begin the 70th week, as discussed in Daniel 9:27. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. So the beginning of the period of time that will lead up to Christ, they're going to know there's a day count associated to it. And a lot of people say, well, how can he come as a thief in the night if there's a day count? Because that refers to a spiritual condition. And we're going to talk about that because that's addressed at the end of Matthew 24. It's not got anything to do with them knowing the days or knowing physically when he's returning. When you go to Revelation, they're told to gather to Armageddon. I mean, clearly they know when he's coming back. They're going to be ready to meet him and do battle. He's not going to surprise anybody. Everybody's going to know when he's coming back. The thief in the night is a reference to a spiritual condition. Are you ready for him to come back, or are you not ready? Like a thief, he breaks in when you're not prepared. Doesn't mean that they are going to know when Jesus is coming back. It means when he does, they're not going to be prepared to receive him. But as far as timing goes, there's a very specific day count. There's a 2,520 day count. There's a 70th week. The second coming has an appointed time, and the 70th week that leads up to that has an appointed time. So these things are set in stone, and what they're asking is very specific to Daniel's 70th week prophecy. It's very specific to the events in Revelation that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so what he's saying here is corresponding to the beginning and the middle and the end, so that they can watch these signs, they can see these signs, they can understand the time period that they're in and know when he's coming back. This is never designed for people to not know. The Bible is a book of information so that people know. None of this is going to be a surprise. It's just going to be that they're not prepared when it happens. But it's not that the knowledge is being hidden and that it's, I didn't come out and tell you, so now I'm going to judge you because you didn't make the right decision, but you didn't know you needed to because I didn't give you all the information. They have all the information. They're just not going to make the right choice. He's giving them more information than they need. They're just not going to make the right choice. So what they're asking him specifically is what are the marks or the benchmarks or the tick marks associated to this time period that leads up to what we're asking you about when you're coming back. And so what he's doing is he's giving them the signs associated to the 70th week, and specifically to the seal judgments and the trumpet judgments and the bowl judgments. Next, we have, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. That goes again to the opening of seal 1, which is the commencement of the 70th week. And again, the 70th week is a very specific period of time that will end in a very specific event, which is what they're asking about. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And there shall be famines. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And pestilences. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed him with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and death, and with the beasts of the earth. Beast of the earth is pestilence. And earthquakes in diverse places. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. This is the beginning of the 70th week. this is how they're going to know that the time period, the countdown, the 70th week is a countdown to the second coming, essentially. I mean, you're given a day count, so it is a countdown to the second coming. So they're saying, what are the signs of your coming at the end of the age? And he's saying the countdown starts here. With the opening of seals 1 through 6, that is your countdown. That is your beginning of the 70th week. All these are the beginning of sorrows. 2,520 days later, I'm coming back. Is exactly what he's saying here. Then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that shall be killed as they were should be fulfilled. Many shall be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Micah 7 talks about this. Starting in verse 1, Woe is me, for I am as when they have gathered the summer fruits. As the grape gleanings of the vintage, there is no cluster to eat. My soul desired the first ripe fruit. The good man is perished out of the earth, and there is none upright among men. They all lie in wait for blood, and hunt every man his brother with a net, that they may do evil with both hands earnestly. The prince asketh, the judge asketh for a reward, and the great man he uttereth his mischievous desire, so they wrap it up. The best of them is as a briar, the most upright is sharper than a thorn hedge. The day of thy watchman and thy visitation cometh. Now shall be their perplexity. Trust ye not in a friend, put ye not confidence in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. For the son dishonoreth the father, the daughter riseth up against the mother, and the daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law, and a man's enemies are the men of his own house. Then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another, and the false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. This is talking about the endurance of faith to whatever end they may meet. That doesn't mean the end of this period of time. It just means, like when I was talking about in the video I did earlier about the crown of righteousness, Paul had fought the good fight. He had finished his course. He had kept the faith. It doesn't mean that they have to, or that they'll even be able to endure to the end of the 70th week, the end of that 2,520 days to meet Jesus at the second coming. It just means that however long they last in this period of time, to whatever end they may find, that their faith endures to that point. That is what he's talking about. So it's talking about the endurance of faith to whatever end they may meet. Maybe it is that they make it all the way through and are part of the remnant that are spared. The likelihood of that happening, though, is not great, which is why it's a remnant, a part. But the chance of anyone lasting to the end of this is slim. So I know that a lot of people think that the only people that will be saved at the end are those that endure throughout the entire part. And for those who don't believe in a pre-trib rapture, believe in a post-trib rapture or no rapture at all, and think that, they'd be there enduring to the end, good luck. I mean, not to be rude, but good luck. If you read through Revelation and look at the judgments, you've got a fourth of the earth being killed here and a third of the earth being killed here. And, no, no, it's not just the people who are able to make it to the end of that day count. It's the endurance of faith to whatever end they meet. Maybe it's that, likely it won't be. So you had the beginning of the week with the seal judgments and talking about the difficulty in time that they would have even through the first half of that, the first half of the 70th week. So now he's going to get to the midpoint. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. Well, that is the finishing of the mystery of God. Revelation 10:7, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God shall be finished, as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets. What is the mystery of God? The gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. Revelation 14:6 and 7. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven, the earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters. This is the final preaching of the gospel, midpoint of the week. The mystery of God is explained in 1 Timothy 3:16. That will be revealed at the sounding of the seventh trumpet, which is mid-trib. And we know that because of what we're told next in Matthew 24. But without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness, and this corresponds to the Revelation 12:1 through 5 signing in the heavens, and Matthew 24:14 and Revelation 14:6 and 7 with the final preaching. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. That has everything to do with a verbal warning, preaching of the gospel from the angel, and a visual representation in the heavens, midpoint of the week, in conjunction with the sounding of the seventh trumpet, to be followed by the abomination of desolation. Because in the Daniel 9:27, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. Well, what does Jesus say? Continuing on in Matthew 24, when ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation, so you know you're mid-trib, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. And pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. That language also is directly from Daniel, but not Daniel 9 this time. Daniel 12. This corresponds to the war in heaven. Michael and his angels make war against the dragon, and the dragon fought back with his angels, and there was found no more place. The seventh trumpet, midpoint of the week, is the third woe, and the woe is that the devil has been cast down to you, and he's wroth because he knoweth that he hath but a short time, and he goes to make war with the remnant of her seed, those who don't flee, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus, which is why it's really important that they flee when they see the abomination of desolation, because they're going to be killed if they don't. But going back to the war in heaven with Michael and his angels, at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as was never since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Delivered, remnant, preserved in the wilderness for the last half of the week. Last half of the week corresponding to a time of trouble that is unlike any that has ever existed. Corresponds to Michael standing up and casting the dragon out of heaven to earth. Corresponds to the midpoint of the week, Matthew 24:21. Then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. So these are all linked. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened, talking about their time in Jerusalem, the warning that Jesus gave, because if he hadn't given that warning, they wouldn't have known to flee, and they would have been wiped out. Well, what remnant's going to then be preserved to call Jesus back in the second coming? None. So he gives the warning and says, when you see this, when you see the event that Daniel spoke of that happens in the midpoint of the week, get the heck out of there and do it immediately, because if you don't, you're going to be killed. That's the shortening of the days. Shortening of the days, their time in Jerusalem, so that there is a remnant to be preserved, to be saved, to keep all of the Old Testament prophecies about the salvation of the Jewish nation intact. So then you go to Matthew 24:23. And this talks about the second half of the week. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. It won't be possible, because the very elect will be preserved in the wilderness, and they won't see those signs and miracles because they would have been spared and kept away from it. This goes to Revelation 13, talking about the beast and the false prophet. Talking about the false prophet specifically, that exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly head wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had this wound by the sword and did live. So again, we go back to Matthew 24:24. There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. But again, the very elect won't be there. They won't be seeing it because they'll be protected, preserved in the wilderness, where the beast and the false prophet cannot get to them. Behold, I have told you before. Excuse me. A lot of talking. Okay. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. Talking about the false Christ and the false prophet deceiving, saying, this is Jesus, this is your Messiah, this is not your Messiah. He's saying, I'm going to tell you what my coming is going to look like. So when they say, that's where he is, or that's what it's going to look like, you know that it's a lie, because I'm telling you what my coming is going to look like. So if they shall say unto you, Behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. He's like, I'm not coming back in the desert. I'm not going to be found in a secret chamber. My coming is going to be in the sky, and it's going to light the whole thing up. And there ain't going to be anybody who doesn't know and doesn't see. So if this is what they're telling you, don't believe it, because I'm going to tell you what my coming is actually going to look like. For as lightning cometh from the east, and shineth even unto the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. It's going to light up the night sky. It's not going to be in the desert. It's not going to be in the secret chambers. It's going to be visible to all. You ain't going to miss it. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. So there you go. There's the 70th week. The beginning, the middle, and then the end. The end is the second coming of Jesus. And he's telling them what it's going to look like. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, after the 70th week is done, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Well, we've certainly gone through a lot of these verses recently, but I will go through a couple of them. We'll start in Joel 2, because it's actually mentioned once in Joel 2 and once in Joel 3 related to the day of the second coming. Actually, Isaiah 13. Since I'm in Isaiah right now, flipping through, trying to find where I want to go, says the same thing. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of the heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in its going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Second coming. Ezekiel, Daniel, Joel 2, 10. The earth before them, the heaven shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, the stars shall withdraw their shining, and the Lord shall utter his voice, for before his army his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. The day of the Lord is great and very terrible, who can abide it? Joel 3:16, the Lord also shall roar out of 15. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, the stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. The Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. Zephaniah, we were just here the other night. Maybe it says it in here, maybe it doesn't. But I think the point has been made enough anyway. Yeah, so this is talking about the day of the second coming. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Well, what is the sign of the Son of Man? Exactly what he told them a few verses prior. For as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Zechariah 14. Zephaniah, where are you? There we go. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord shall go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof. Toward the east and toward the west there shall be a great valley, etc. Verse 6, and it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. Why? Because as lightning cometh from the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Glorious appearing. Light up the night sky. Nobody gonna miss it. That is the sign of the Son of Man. It's not preparing the way saying, oh, he's going to come back, in a day or two when you see this. When you see this, this is him coming back in glory. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Isaiah 45:23. I have sworn by myself, the word is gone out of my mouth in righteousness, and shall not return, that unto me every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall swear. Surely shall one say in the Lord, I have righteousness and strength. Even to him shall men come, and all that are incensed against him shall be ashamed. And he shall send his angels with the sound of a great trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, one end of heaven to the other. The elect are not who the elect, as in the good people, are not who the angels gather. Matthew 13, and he said unto them, Matthew 13:36. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares in the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of the world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears, let him hear. So who do the angels gather? All things that offend, and them which do iniquity. Then shall he send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. When you see the beginning of the 70th week, know that that is the beginning of your countdown. That is when you know that the second coming is nigh, even at the door, is when the 70th week starts, because that is day one, and 2,520 days later, he is coming back. That is what that means. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. The last generation, this generation, the terminal generation, not the one they were currently in, but the generation that will see these things, the terminal generation. It's not going to pass away because there's a remnant that will be preserved. So some of them will be alive to see that. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. What day don't they know of? The day the heavens and earth are going to pass away. Well, but what about the imminency? I mean, when it starts, there's a day count associated to it, so clearly they're going to know. Yeah, they're going to know that information. Know in this capacity means to visually see. So there's no reference point for this. The heavens and earth have never passed away. There's never been a glorious appearing before. The events of the 70th week, there's nothing comparable to those. The events of the second coming and what will happen at the second coming never happened. There's nothing comparable to that. There's no reference point that exists for men, mortal, or angels, immortal. Or if you go to the account of Mark, it says the Son doesn't know either. In his humanity, before he went to the cross and then rose as a glorified God with all knowledge, he only had knowledge that the Spirit revealed to him, that was allowed to be revealed to him by the Father when he was on earth in his humanity the first time, again, before he went to the cross and before he rose glorified. So at this point, there was no mortal, no immortal, and even the Son in his humanity did not have visual knowledge of the events of this period in time that would lead to this prophesied event, the second coming. Only the Father, my Father only, because the Father has foreknowledge, is outside of space and time. And now, of course, that was written in a present tense language. But of that day and hour knoweth, that's a present tense. It's not a continuing, like no one's ever going to know. Jesus now knows in his glorified state. And obviously the Father knows. And then everybody who actually sees this event will know too. But at the time this was written, knowledge was limited. Now, there's always a witness verse. People like to pick Matthew 24:36 out and say, no one knows the day or the hour. Well, it doesn't even say that. The Bible does not say no man knows the day or the hour. It says of that day, what day and hour? Of that day, specific day and hour. Go to the previous verse. Heaven and earth shall pass away. So it's the day and hour that the heavens and the earth pass away, which happen at the timing of the second coming. Knoweth no man. No man has a visual reference point for. No, not the angels of heaven. No angels have a visual reference point for. But my Father only, who is outside of space and time, who knows because he knows the end from the beginning and knows all things. So it doesn't say no man knows the day or the hour. It says of the day and hour, regarding the events of that time, that specific time. No one has a visual reference point for it because it's never happened before. We do know what day it'll happen. And we know that it'll be evening time when it happens, maybe not the specific hour, but Zechariah 14, it says, it shall come to pass in that day, the day of the second coming, that the light shall not be clear nor dark, talking about how it's going to visually appear. But it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord. Yeah, because the visual appearance of that day is going to be like unlike anything that's ever existed. But it will be known to the Lord. The Lord's going to know what it looks like because, the foreknowledge thing. Not day nor night, because if you go to other passages, it's like the sun's not shining, the moon's not shining, the stars aren't shining, but it's like there's going to be some kind of opaque atmosphere. It's weird. But it's all over the minor prophets. I don't have the passages specifically in front of me, but it's described all over the place. Maybe... I think Micah 5. Joel, Amos. I could be wrong. If it's there. Yeah, it's not. Anyway, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to find it, but It's got to do with the visual appearance of that day and nobody really understanding because it's just not comprehensible because there's no reference point. But it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. So in the evening, the glorious appearing is going to be in the evening. And in one of the Psalms, actually somebody on my Facebook page posted something about this in one of the Psalms, where it says in the evening his fierce anger, and in the morning it's all joy. So the second coming is going to be in the evening, and we also can kind of figure out what day it's going to be too. So I'll leave that topic for another time, but suffice it to say that the Bible does not say no man knows the day or the hour. It says, of that day and hour, talking about the passing of the heavens and earth, knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only, because there's not a visual reference point for events that have never happened before. 2 Peter 3 talks about this. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, the elements shall melt with fervent heat, the earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. So, yeah, it's never happened before. So nobody knows what it's going to look like because there's nothing to compare it to. So then he goes into talking about, so that's it, for the beginning, the middle, and the end. That's your 70th week, according to Daniel 9:27. Confirmation of the covenant, middle of the week, you shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, for the overspreading of abomination shall make it desolate, and they flee until the consummation that determined is poured upon the desolate. Judgment of the nations, angels gathering the tares, everything out that offends, throws it into the furnace of fire where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. So you've got beginning of the week, middle of the week, end of the week, ending in the second coming of Jesus. That is Matthew 24, according to Daniel 9:27, and the book of Revelation. So now we go to Matthew 24:37, and he's drawing comparisons from here on out. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days they were eating before the flood, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So we go back to the story of Noah. 600 years he was building the ark. And then on the day that they entered the ark, God shut them in. And the rains came, and everybody that wasn't in the ark, all the animals that weren't in the ark died. So there's this period of time that people have to prepare while this is all going on, 2,520 days. And on the day, he's going to come back, and he's going to judge. And they're either going to be ready or they're not going to be ready. They're either going to go into the kingdom if they were spiritually prepared, or not spiritually prepared, they're going to die. This is 2 Timothy 4:1. I charge thee therefore before God, the Lord Jesus Christ, who will judge the quick and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. That is D-Day. That is the day by which everyone must have made a decision one way or the other. And those who are not spiritually prepared will die, like they who were not prepared and not in the ark died when the rains came. So then we go into another metaphor, I guess, comparison. Then shall two be in the field, one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, one shall be taken, the other left. That's talking about the gathering of the angels. And the parable of the wheat and the tares, how the angels will gather the elect. The elect being those, they're gathering out of the kingdom all things that offend and them that do iniquity, because they will not. And that's what he's saying in verse 42, the admonition. During the dispensation of grace, it's we walk by faith and not by sight. In the 70th week, it's they walk by sight. Everything will be when you see this, when you see this, when you see this. Signs galore. This judgment, this judgment, this judgment at this point of the week, at this point of the week, at this point of the week. It's all sign-based. No, yes, there's faith to be saved, but it's all sign-based. That's the reward for us in this dispensation, is the reward for our faith is being raptured and spared from it. Everything in the 70th week is sign-based, is visual-based, is sight-based. And that's what he's saying. Watch therefore these signs, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. You got to watch what's going on, because the timing when he comes, you need to be prepared by seeing these signs leading up to, because when you see it, it's going to be too late. You need to watch these signs leading up to know you're in the time and make your choice then, because when you see him come back, when you see the glorious appearing, when you see the lightning cometh from the east and shining even unto the west, that will be too late. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and he would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. What's the hour that they think not? 2 Peter 3. Knowing this first, there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that was then being overflowed with water perished. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved under fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. There will be a lot of people who don't think he's coming back. They're going to know. They're going to know. That's why 2 Peter 3 says, for this they willingly are ignorant. It's not that the information won't be there, it's that they will not accept it. Willingly ignorant. That's the hour that they think not. Willful ignorance. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is the servant whom when his Lord, blessed is that servant whom his Lord when he cometh shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. These are going to go into the parables, the kingdom parables in the next chapter, talking about the parable of the talents specifically. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, willfully ignorant, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So all of those just contrast the spiritually prepared versus the spiritually unprepared. At the time when Christ comes back, there will be those who are prepared, those who are watching, those who know and are faith-based, and those who are not ready because they didn't accept him, and because they're either willingly ignorant and say he's not coming back, or they just don't care that he's coming back, or they might be there to meet him to come back and try to defeat him. It doesn't matter. There's two types of people, those ready and those not ready. And that's what's being contrasted. I'm not sure what you mean by safe havens. I'm sorry. So then we go to Matthew 25. And this is a really easy chapter to get through. There's 3 subject matters here. 2 kingdom parables. One is actually talking about the marriage supper of the Lamb. And one is talking about entry into the millennial kingdom, which are the same. If they're invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb, that means they are invited into the kingdom, because the marriage supper of the Lamb takes place in the kingdom after the kingdom is brought from heaven to earth. And then the judgment of the sheep and goats, which also talks about who's granted entry into the kingdom and who is forbid entry into the kingdom. So the first is the parable of the 10 virgins. And I'm actually going to read Luke 12:35 through 37 to start this. There are way too many people, because even one is too many, who believe that this is related to the rapture or some kind of a partial rapture or something like that. It's the kingdom parable, the kingdom of heaven. It's a time when the kingdom of heaven is brought from heaven to earth, which is with Jesus when he returns at the second coming. Well, the whole chapter was leading up to signs of thy coming and of the end of the age. It was beginning, middle, end of the week ending, 70th week ending with the return of Christ. So clearly this is a scenario where he's bringing the kingdom from heaven to earth to establish in righteousness. And who are righteous and who are wicked? Well, he's establishing a righteous kingdom, which means no wicked are allowed in it. So this is a separation of the righteous and the wicked to determine who goes into the kingdom for that 1,000 years. The parable of the 10 virgins. Same story in Luke 12, 35 through 37. Let your loins be girded about and your lights burning, and ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord, when he will return from the wedding, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the Lord when he cometh shall find watching. Verily I say unto you that he shall gird himself and make them to sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them. This is going to be talking about entrance into the marriage supper of the Lamb, which occurs again on earth after the judgment of the wicked, first order of business in the millennial kingdom, as noted in Revelation 19. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, white and clean. For fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. And he saith unto me, Right, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he saith unto me, These are the true sayings of God. And then heaven's opened, and Jesus comes back with the armies to set up the kingdom on earth after he treads the winepress of the wrath of God. So, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. Luke says, Blessed are they, those servants whom the Lord when he cometh shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, he shall gird himself and make them to sit down to meat, and he will come forth and serve them. So this is marriage supper of the Lamb. Who gets to go into it? Then shall the kingdom of heaven that's being brought from heaven to earth to establish on earth. Who goes in? Will be likened unto 10 virgins who took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. And they that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. This is the spiritually prepared versus the spiritually unprepared. The oil is representative of the Spirit. So again, we have 5 who had a Spirit and 5 who didn't. Saved versus unsaved. Saved go in, unsaved do not. The wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept, and at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto them, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise said, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. Can't buy the Spirit, you just have to get it by faith. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready, spiritually prepared, went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Marriage supper of the Lamb. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered, and he said Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. And again, that's a knowing, a visual knowing. Because there's no reference point that exists. They have to watch the signs up to it. What shall be the signs of thy coming and of the end of the age? They want to know the signs leading up to. It says, watch, for you know not what hour, the day nor the hour that your Lord doth come. Because by the time you see it, it'll be too late. Got to watch the signs leading up to it, is what he's telling them. Israel. Verily, I know you not. This is Matthew 7. So, talking about spiritual preparation, those that are spiritually prepared and those are not. Matthew 7:17, even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Drawing a very big distinction between spiritually prepared and spiritually unprepared. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Who are they that do the will of his Father that sent him? What's the will of the Father that they have to do? It says, this is the will of the Father who sent me. Just want to find this verse and read it exactly. It's in John 6. Yeah, this is the will of him that sent me, that of all that he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up at the last day. It's got to do with believing. Those who do the will of the Father believe on him who he has sent. It's in John 6 somewhere. I won't keep looking. But Matthew 7, talking about those who say they know him but don't. He says, verily I know you not. Because the will of the Father is that they believe on him who he hath sent. It's all faith-based. It's always only ever been faith-based. So doing the will of the Father doesn't involve anything other than faith. And Jesus makes that very clear in John 6. But can't find the verse, and I don't want to look, but it's there. I'll try to find it and post it in the discussion box if you guys don't know where it is. But I don't know where it is at this present time. So then the next parable is the parable of the talents. And again, this goes into who gets into the kingdom and who doesn't. Acceptance versus rejection. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, and another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them another 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained another 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with one. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents. John 6:40. Thank you. I knew it was in John 6. It's a long chapter. So you're awesome, Cindy. Thank you. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So, yes, thank you. Sorry, I'll go back to that for a second. Sometimes I can prepare and sometimes I can't, because stuff just comes to me, and I kind of, thank you very much. So he says, Lord, Lord, not everyone, Lord, Lord, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. And what's the will of the Father? This is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So the will of the Father is to believe in Jesus. Those who don't believe in Jesus are the ones that get turned away. Very plain and simple. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so the parable of the talents. One was given 5, 1, 2, 1, 1. The one who had 5 made another 5. The one who had 2 made another 2. And the one who had 1 digged a hole in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought another 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them another 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. The joy of the Lord is also called in other translations the master's happiness, also called the millennial kingdom. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside him. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. This goes back to the previous chapter where it says, Blessed is that servant whom his Lord when he cometh shall find so doing. Verily I say unto him that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But if the evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and does a whole bunch of things he's not supposed to while he's away, he gets cast into outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. This brings us to the final servant. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. So he's like, you're basically calling him a bad master, a harsh master, and one who steals, like claims the benefit of work that he didn't do. No. I was afraid and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, thou hast that is mine. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. So he's like, you're casting aspersions on me? Really? No. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money in the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. So he's like, if you think I'm this bad, horrible guy, then you didn't have to go work with money that you thought I didn't justly earn. You could have at least put it in the bank and earned me interest. But you didn't even do that. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. So if you don't do what you're supposed to with what you got, it's going to be taken and given to somebody else who's going to make use of it. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Outer darkness is a reference for Hades and Sheol. It's not a reference for you're in the kingdom, but just not in a good part of it, like you're in the projects of the kingdom. There are no projects of the kingdom. It means you're in Hades or Sheol, and you're going to be cast in the lake of fire eventually. In case anybody was unclear about that. Okay, so then we come to the judgment of the sheep and goats. This is, did you do the right thing or did you not do the right thing? See, this goes back to Genesis 12:3, the original Abrahamic covenant. I've discussed this recently. Very, very important. People take this all kinds out of context right now to talk about the division of the land of Jerusalem and, giving it to the Palestinians or, whatever. It's not what this is about at all. In the original Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12:1-3, the terms are laid out. There's a land covenant. There is a natural seed covenant. The descendants that would come from Abraham would number the sands of the sea, the stars of the sky, would be innumerable. And there was the promised seed that would be the Messiah that would come through his line. And so through Abraham and the promised seed, the Messiah, all of the nations of the earth would be blessed. But the spiritual seed is a choice. Faith is always a choice. It's always a free will choice. You choose to believe or you choose not to believe. If you don't make any choice, it is a negative choice. And there's the treatment of Israel here. The natural descendants, bless, curse. I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So regarding the spiritual seed, there's 2 things. Bless Israel, you get blessed. Curse Israel, you get cursed. Taken further to the spiritual seed, which is the blessing upon the entire earth. Obviously, if people don't believe in Jesus Christ or in the Old Testament, the promise is forward looking to Christ, then that's a whole different story. Always only ever faith-based. But we get the judgment of the sheep and goats is all about bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. This is all about the Gentiles' treatment of Israel. Did you treat them well or did you not? Are you going to receive a blessing, which is entry into the kingdom, or are you not going to receive are you going to be cursed and cast into eventually the lake of fire? That is entirely what this judgment of the sheep and goats is about, is seeing the fulfillment of the bless them that bless thee, curse them that curse thee. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, Gentiles. And he shall separate them one from another as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. His sheep, ownership of the sheep. My sheep hear my voice and they know me, going to John 10. They know him, and as a result, their treatment of Israel gains them a blessing. The goats. This is an ownership versus a you aren't mine, you're going to go away. So as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Then shall he set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed, I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse ye. His sheep know his voice. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat, I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink, I was a stranger, and ye took me in, naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me, I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? The king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Bless them that bless thee. Then shall he also say unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Curse them that curse thee. Why? For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of these least of these, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Matthew 24 and 25 are both part of the Olivet Discourse. They are different teachings, speaking beginning, middle, end of the week, signs leading up to, and then including the second coming. Be likened unto the situations where there's spiritual condition one way or spiritual condition another. No gray here. It's black or white, one way or the other. They will be prepared or they will not be prepared. Kingdom of heaven coming, how are they going to receive him? Are they ready for him or are they not ready for him? And when he comes, those who are ready go into the kingdom and the marriage supper of the Lamb. Those who are not ready go into outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. And when did this happen? And it came to pass when Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said unto the disciples, You know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover. The Olivet Discourse took place on Nisan 12. Halfway in between the Triumphal Entry and his death on the cross. In case anyone didn't know that, that is when that happened. So what shall be the signs of thy coming and of the end of the age? The 70th week. Seals, trumpets, bowls, second coming. The sign of the Son of Man, what is it? Is lightning cometh from the east and shineth even unto the west. So also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. This has not one thing to do with the rapture of the church. It has got to do with the delay of the kingdom. From Matthew 5, there was a fulfillment, and that fulfillment came with the passing away of the heavens and the earth. All things remade new. What was it dependent on? the corporate salvation, acceptance of Jesus upon the triumphal entry, but they didn't because the religious leaders rejected him. So blindness was cast over Israel. They sent him to the cross. His disciple, and the kingdom was delayed. There would be a second coming at that point. His disciples wanted to know what were going to be the signs of that coming in at the end of the age. So he told them. And what he told them corresponded to Daniel's prophecy, beginning, middle, end of the week, leading up to the second coming. And then there was one more thing they were told. One more piece of information they were given to the puzzle. Comes in Acts 1. Starting in verse 4, and being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which saith he, ye have heard of me. For John truly baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Holy Ghost not many days hence. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? So they said, your second coming, can you restore it now? And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. Again, not talking about knowing as in like a day count or what year, time, hour, whatever. This is the word know here means to realize, to experience through firsthand experience. He's basically saying that when he came again to bring the kingdom would not be in their natural lifetimes. So they're asking him, are you going to restore it at this time? He said, no, it's not going to be for you to experience firsthand. So it would not be in their natural lifetimes that he would return. And obviously that is true because he's has not yet come back almost 2,000 years later. So that is Matthew 24 and 25. I kind of took a long way to get there, to build up to it. But I hope that you now understand that it is linked specifically to the 70th week prophecy in Daniel 9:27 and Revelation, beginning, middle, end, ending with the judgment of the wheat and the tares, the angels gathering out of the kingdom all that offend, and everyone that is left on earth gets to go into the kingdom. And talking about the Antichrist and the false prophet, the abomination of desolation, the flight of the remnant, all of that stuff. It is 70th week specific, the Olivet Discourse. The signs of thy coming are 70th week specific, related to the seals specifically, the midpoint of the week with the preaching of the gospel, which is tied to trumpet 7, the abomination of desolation, which is tied to the midpoint, Daniel 9:27, and then the flight of the remnant, which we learn in Revelation 12, is at the midpoint of the week also. And then you've got links to the delusion that will come upon the world, as stated in Revelation 13, perpetrated by the beast and false prophet specifically. And then you have the second coming, what it's going to look like, a visual understanding. I mean, as much as we can understand without being there to see it, what it's going to look like. It's glorious appearing. Every eye will see him, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall swear. Nobody's going to miss it. Not even a little. And then he's just goes in to talk about the spiritual condition of people that will exist. There will be those who are prepared spiritually, those who are not prepared spiritually, and what happens to both people. One gets to go in and one does not get to go in. So that's that. So when people say that we are the last generation of the budding of the fig tree is wrong. It's not contextually accurate. What he's saying has got nothing to do with the church. He's saying when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Seeing all these things is understanding the beginning of the 70th week, knowing that the second coming is the end of that time period. But once the clock hasn't started yet, the clock to the second coming, I mean, technically it has, because like there's an appointed time, and once he ascended, then obviously there was a clock of time counting down to the second coming. But the signs related to the clock starting, the countdown starting to the second coming begin with a day count in Daniel, the 70th week prophecy. And that begins with the opening of the first seal, which is exactly what he began his, what will be the signs of that coming in at the end of the age. He started with the arrival of the false Christ. That is the countdown. So when he says, when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door, he's saying, when you see the event that tells you seal 1 is open, the clock has started ticking to the countdown. 2,520 days later, I'm coming back. So no, it is not contextually accurate to say that. I mean, there are other reasons why you can make a statement that agrees with that we are in the last generation. But what he's saying is the people who see the clock start counting down are the ones who are going to, those are the generation that'll be alive to see the return of Christ. Because again, it's day 1 to day 2,520, and then he's coming back. So that's why it's really important to not try to associate any of those signs to things that we see now. Because, yeah, there's earthquakes, and, yeah, there's famine, and, yeah, there's pestilence, and, yeah, there's false prophets and people pretending to be, Jesus or whatever. But those are very specific to Revelation seal judgments. And those seal judgments happen in the course of Daniel's 70th week. These signs of thy coming and of the end of the age are 70th week specific. So in the verse, now learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Well, all of these things begin with the revelation of the false Christ. So the people who see that thing are in the last 7 years leading up to the return of Jesus. And we're not in that time period yet. That's not to say that we're not the last generation, but that's not contextually accurate to try to apply it to the church or to us right now, because these events haven't started yet. So I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm just going to say that's not what he's talking about in here. Talking about the beginning of the 70th week. When you see that begin and everything leading up to it, you know you're in the time of the return of Christ. Welcome. Anybody else have any questions? I know that it was long. I've been here for a while. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I understand there's a lot of controversy over this, but it's very clearly about the second coming. It's 70th week and Revelation specific. All of these scriptures support one another. So got nothing to do with the church, got nothing to do with the rapture. The next video I do will have to do with the rapture. I'm just not sure when it'll be, and I have to figure out what I want to talk about. But I've got some cool stuff to go through. So I appreciate you being here, your time and your attention. Absolutely. Like I said, comments, questions, feedback, always welcome it. And if you've got any other ideas of things that you want me to go through, topics to introduce and or reintroduce, subjects I've written about, subjects I haven't written about, let me know. I will try to do my best for you guys. But I thank you for being here, as always. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your week and or weekend if I don't see you before then. So take care.